The Boy Who Read the Tape. The Young Jesse Livermore. The Call of the Market. I was born in 1877 in a small farmhouse in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts. The morning smelled of wet soil and hard work. My father rose before dawn, his hands already tired before the day even began. He believed a man's worth was measured in sweat, that the earth would feed you if you gave her enough of yourself. But I was never meant for the soil. While he counted crops, I counted numbers. I found patterns in everything: the sound of rain on the barn roof, the rhythm of a wagon's wheel, even the way the wind brushed through the fields. To him, I was a daydreamer. To me, I was listening to the world move. By the time I was 14, I already knew that the farm would bury me if I stayed. My father used to say, "You can't eat numbers, Jesse." But I had a strange feeling that numbers could eat the world. So I ran away. I had $3 in my pocket and a notebook filled with scribbles of prices and odds. The train to Boston felt like the first breath of freedom. I didn't know where I was going, only that the noise of the city sounded more like my destiny than the silence of the fields. Boston was alive, busy, loud, impatient. And right in the heart of that chaos, I founded a small brokerage office with a machine that changed my life. A ticker. Thin strips of paper spitting out numbers. The heartbeat of an invisible giant called the stock market. Most clerks just copied those numbers on the board. But I watched them, I felt them. Every rise, every dip had a pulse, a story, a human emotion hiding behind it. To me, the ticker wasn't paper. It was a living creature. It spoke if you knew how to listen. The first time I placed a bet at a bucket shop, my hands shook. I had saved enough to buy a small position on Union Pacific. I didn't know charts or indicators. I just knew what the tape was whispering up. And it went up. And I made more in a day than I ever made on the farm in a month. That feeling, it wasn't greed, it was clarity. Like for the first time, I wasn't guessing, I was seeing. Soon I became a regular at every bucket shop in Boston. They started to recognize my handwriting, and then they started to fear it. When I walked in, whispers spread that boy again. I won so often that shops began banning me. I wasn't supposed to beat the house. But I wasn't gambling, I was reading the rhythm. People asked how I did it. I couldn't explain. It wasn't luck. It wasn't even analysis. It was something deeper: instinct, honed by observation, by solitude, by listening more than I spoke. Every trader chases information. But what they really chase is certainty, and that doesn't exist. I learned early that the market doesn't reward intelligence. It rewards patience, discipline, and detachment. You don't need to be right, you just need to be less wrong than the rest. By 16, I had more money than most grown men in my town. But more dangerous than the money was what it did to my mind. I started believing that I had figured it out, that I could feel what others couldn't. That illusion is how every genius starts to die slowly, quietly convinced he's different. At 21, I took my winnings and moved to New York, the real stage, Wall Street, the place where dreams and disasters sleep in the same bed. I thought I was ready, but the market had been waiting for me patiently, like a teacher preparing a lesson. The first year humbled me. What worked in the bucket shops didn't work here. The ticker was faster, the manipulation smarter, the stakes deadlier. I lost, not everything but enough to taste humiliation, and that taste, it stays with you. But every loss was a page in a larger book. I started taking notes, not about prices, but about behavior. How traders acted when they were scared, how the tape moved before bad news hit, how volume spiked when hope was high, It wasn't numbers I was studying anymore, it was people. That was my real education, not the patterns, but the psychology. Because the truth is simple. Markets are moved not by logic, but by emotion, fear, and greed, the same two strings that have played humanity's song since the beginning of time. People like to think they're rational, but give them money, give them risk, give them a chart that promises wealth and reason disappears. I saw it in their eyes every day on Wall Street, the same flicker of hope, the same tremor of fear. It was almost poetic. And the more I understood that, the clearer the market became. Each ticker line wasn't random. It was a pulse of human behavior, translated into numbers. When the tape trembled, I could feel the crowd tremble. When the tape steadied, I knew confidence was returning. I wasn't trading stocks. I was trading human nature. That's what people never understood about me. They thought I had a secret formula. I didn't. My edge wasn't math, it was emotion. I could sense when the crowd's conviction was fake, and I bet against it. Some call it intuition. I call it listening. And the market, if you listen closely enough, tells you everything you need to know. The Rise New York smelled different. It wasn't the earth or the rain. It was metal ink and ambition. Every man who walked down Broad Street had a dream, and most of them thought they could outsmart the rest. I was one of them. I rented a small room close to Wall Street, nothing fancy, just a desk, a notebook, and a window overlooking the chaos below. Every morning I'd stand there staring at the sea of black hats and suits, all moving in rhythm, like some great machine driven by fear and greed. I wasn't intimidated. I was fascinated. I spent hours at the ticker rooms watching the tape roll like an endless stream of consciousness. I could see the crowd in the numbers. I could hear their hearts beating in every up and down tick. And I began to understand the market isn't about prices. It's about pressure. Pressure builds, it releases, and then it builds again. Those who learn to feel it not just see it survive, those who don't get crushed. I had my first real win in New York when panic hit in 1907. Banks failed, brokers cried, the world screamed. I stayed silent. While everyone rushed to sell what they didn't understand, I shorted everything. Steel, railroads, copper. It wasn't courage, it was conviction. The tape told me the world was trembling, and I believed it. In one day I made $3 million. It's a strange feeling to be calm while everyone else collapses. To stand still in the middle of panic and watch chaos pay your bills. People called me a genius, but they didn't see the nights I lay awake before it happened, watching the numbers whisper disaster. They didn't see how I doubted myself with every tick. When the dust settled, I was famous. The boy Plunger, the man who broke the street. Reporters wrote about me like I was a magician, but there was no magic, only patience and pain. You don't break the street. You only survive its storms. Money came fast, and faster than money came pride. I bought a mansion, cars, tailored suits, even a yacht. Every detail was a declaration I made it. But deep down, I knew success is the most seductive form of danger. Because once you win big, you stop asking why you won. And that's when the lessons begin. Trading is like a mirror. When you're poor, it shows you your fears. When you're rich, it shows you your delusions. Either way, you're looking at yourself. I thought I understood everything, every pattern, every shift, every whisper of the market. But arrogance blinds in silence. It doesn't shout. It whispers in your ear, you're different. You're smarter. That voice grew louder each year. I started trading bigger, riskier, faster. And when the market turned against me, I didn't listen to the tape anymore. I argued with it. The first time I lost millions, I told myself it was temporary. The second time, I blamed luck. The third time, I blamed everyone else. That's the thing about pride. It rewrites your reality. You stop seeing truth and start seeing only what protects your ego. I learned that too late. But every fall in the market is just a rehearsal for the next rise. And by the 1920s, the world had forgotten its fear. The Great War was over, the economy booming, and the crowd believed the market would rise forever. New money poured in from every corner of America. Farmers, teachers, mechanics. Everyone wanted a piece of Wall Street. They called it the Roaring Twenties. To me, it sounded like madness wearing perfume. I saw the greed in their eyes. The laughter on trading floors felt too loud, too confident. The ticker ran hotter than I'd ever seen it was alive, manic, unstable. And in that chaos, I felt the same old rhythm again. The pulse I hadn't heard since 1907. Something was coming. But when you tell people that euphoria is dangerous, they call you a pessimist. When you warn them that bubbles burst, they laugh because everyone believes they'll be the one who gets out first. No one ever does. By 1928, I had rebuilt everything I'd lost, and more. My wealth was enormous, my reputation restored. But I was different now. Older, quieter. I didn't trade for excitement anymore, I traded for survival. And I could feel the air getting thinner, the optimism getting louder, the danger creeping closer. People told me, "Jesse, you're crazy. The market will never crash again." But I'd seen that movie before, and the ending never changes. When 1929 arrived, I was already short. Not because I wanted to profit from pain, but because I knew it was inevitable. The market isn't just numbers. It's a reflection of mass psychology. And when everyone believes they can't lose, that's when they're closest to losing everything. I wasn't trying to be right. I was just trying not to be wrong. And so I waited, watching the tape. The crash. I can still remember the silence before it began. It was the kind of silence that only comes before a storm, thick, heavy, full of denial. On the surface, everything sparkled. New York glowed with confidence. Men smoked cigars on Fifth Avenue and spoke of endless prosperity. Stocks climbed every day like the laws of gravity had been repealed. The newspapers said the world had entered a new era, that wealth was permanent, that America had conquered fear itself. I knew better. You can't conquer fear. You can only forget it for a while. And when you do, it comes back twice as strong. The market in 1929 was like a party that had gone on too long. Everyone was drunk on optimism. Brokers danced on borrowed money. Banks lent without caution. And every man who could sign his name thought he was an investor. They called it easy money. But I knew the easier the money, the harder the lesson. I watched the tape every morning from my office high above Wall Street. It moved too fast, too high, too perfect. The rhythm was unnatural. When you've spent your life listening to that rhythm, you can hear when it's lying. The tape had lost its honesty. I started shorting, quietly, patiently. While others bragged about new highs, I sold into their dreams. I didn't celebrate, I prepared, because I knew panic doesn't announce itself. It just arrives. October 24th, 1929. Black Thursday. I woke up to chaos. The phones rang without rest. Brokers screamed orders they didn't understand. The ticker fell behind by hours. There were too many trades, too much fear. Stocks plunged. Men who were millionaires at breakfast were ruined by lunch. From my office, I watched the city shake. Crowds gathered outside the exchange, faces pale, eyes wide. Some prayed, some cursed, some simply stared, unable to believe that everything they'd built could vanish in a day. And me, I sat still, calm, detached, not proud, never proud, just aware. I had seen this rhythm before. It was the same heartbeat as 1907, faster, louder, desperate. By the time the ticker stopped, I had made over $100 million, more than anyone had ever made in a single market collapse. The newspapers called me the man who beat Wall Street. They said I was a prophet, a genius, the one man smart enough to see it coming. But as I read those headlines, I felt no joy, only emptiness. Because here's the truth. You can't celebrate while the world burns. You can't enjoy winning when everyone else is drowning. Wealth is meaningless when it's measured in other people's pain. I walked home that night through a city that no longer felt alive. The air smelled like dust and fear. Men stood in alleyways, silent, staring at the ground. The same brokers who used to boast in clubs now avoided eye contact, and I, the man who had made a fortune, felt more alone than ever. You see, people think the market is about money, but it's not. It's about trust. And once trust breaks in prices in people, in yourself, it takes generations to repair. They say success changes you, but failure changes you more. And when success and failure come together, when you profit from destruction, something inside you cracks. I tried to convince myself that I'd done nothing wrong, that I'd simply played by the rules. But deep down, I knew I hadn't beaten Wall Street. I'd beaten other men's hope. For months, the panic continued. Each day brought new collapses, new suicides, new despair. Every ticker drop was another broken life. I turned off the tape. I couldn't listen anymore. When you spend your life reading the heartbeat of humanity, and one day it stops, you can't unhear it. People celebrated me as a genius, but I felt like a ghost, walking through the ruins of my own prophecy. The fortune I made felt like blood money, and the silence that followed the crash was louder than any cheer I'd ever heard. The market eventually stabilized, as it always does, but something in me never recovered. Because when you've seen what human fear looks like, not in theory, but in faces, in voices, in the trembling hands of men who've lost everything, you never see the world the same way again. The crash didn't just destroy wealth, it destroyed illusions. And illusions once gone are hard to rebuild. The fall. After the crash, I was rich, unimaginably rich, but I was also hollow. People think wealth protects you from pain, but it doesn't. It only builds a higher wall between you and everyone else. Behind that wall, silence becomes deafening. I had everything a man could want: houses, cars, servants, respect. But each morning I woke with the same thought, for what the thrill was gone. The chase was over. I'd conquered the market, yet somehow I'd lost myself. At first I tried to keep trading. I told myself it was just another cycle. But the market no longer spoke to me. The rhythm I once heard so clearly had faded into noise. Maybe it wasn't the market that changed. Maybe it was me. For years I had built my life around movement. Prices, moving, people moving, my own ambition moving. But when I finally stopped, I realized I didn't know who I was without it. Success isolates. People only see the fortune, not the fragility behind it. Friends become strangers. Strangers become parasites. Everyone wants something: advice, money, connection, but never you. My second wife left. My sons stopped calling, and I, Jesse Livermore, the man who once read the heartbeat of Wall Street, could no longer feel my own. There's a cruel paradox to fame. When you're nobody, you dream of being seen. When you're famous, you wish to disappear. Reporters still wrote about me, but the stories had changed. Now they called me reckless, unstable, erratic. Maybe they were right. The market had taken its toll. Years of constant pressure, the wins, the losses, the endless self-doubt. It erodes you from the inside. I began breaking my own rules. The ones that once made me who I was, never average down, cut losses, stay patient. I broke them all. Why? Because I stopped fearing loss. And when you stop fearing loss, you stop respecting risk. That's when you die, not financially, but spiritually. I started chasing ghosts, trying to relive the feeling of victory, the rush of being right when the world was wrong. But the market doesn't let you repeat history. It always writes new lessons in the same ink pane. I overtraded, I overleveraged, I trusted the wrong people. Each mistake chipped away at what little discipline I had left. Every loss was another reminder that the man I once was had already disappeared. Eventually, I lost most of what I'd earned. The newspapers loved that part, the fallen titan, the tragic genius. It made a better story than the truth that I had simply grown tired. Tired of chasing something that could never love me back. You see, the market is the most seductive lover a man can have. It whispers, it rewards, it punishes, and you keep coming back, even when you know it will hurt you. Because deep down, you need it to feel alive. But love built on volatility is doomed. It doesn't sustain, it consumes. And that's what happened to me. It consumed everything, my money, my family, my peace. I moved between hotels, smaller homes, quieter rooms. The noise of Wall Street faded behind me, replaced by the sound of my own thoughts, the only ticker left that I couldn't stop. At night I'd lie awake replaying every decision. The wins, the losses, the arrogance, the blindness. It's a strange torture to know you were right about the market, but wrong about life. To realize you mastered patterns, but not yourself. And that's the truth no one tells you about success. It doesn't make you happy. It just gives you a larger stage to act out your mistakes. In the end, the market didn't destroy me. I destroyed myself. One trade at a time, one compromise at a time, until there was nothing left but memory. I remember walking through the old streets of New York one winter night. The snow covered everything, the buildings, the lights, even the noise. And for a brief moment I thought about how peaceful it looked. Still, quiet, balanced, the way the market never is. I wondered if that's what peace feels like, stillness after chaos, but peace like profit has a price. And mine was long overdue. Yongcham lenhuloit thunhan kwoi. You know, people always ask what the hardest part of trading is. It isn't losing money, it's losing yourself and not realizing it until it's too late. I built my life around the pursuit of control, but in the end all I learned was this. Control is an illusion. The more you try to hold it, the faster it slips through your hands. Maybe that's why I kept trading not for wealth, but for redemption. Every trade was a confession. Every loss was an atonement. Every profit was a lie. I told myself that I'd changed. But I hadn't. I was still the boy who ran away from home chasing numbers. Only now I was too old to run and too proud to stop.